The reason I got started in the sport is because my brother started swimming. He was in a surf life-saving race, got beaten by a couple of girls, wasn't too happy, and he actually asked Mum and Dad to do some swimming lessons up in North Queensland. So being 6.5 years younger than him, I decided to get into swimming as well, and yeah, it just progressed from there. That was 1984, so when I was 4 years of age. So yeah, I'm 28 now, so 24 years of swimming, it's a long time. I guess for me, I was always competitive, always wanted to do well, and I always had goals that I'd set from a very young age and was determined to meet those. It was probably around the age of 14, 15, really around coming into the '96 Olympic trials, probably 12 months out from that. I was really determined to make a real go of swimming and wanted to be competitive on an international stage and make the national team. So from that age onwards was a real focus on swimming, and particularly after Sydney got the Olympics in 1993. That I guess motivated me more to want to pursue sport and particularly swimming. A lot, I guess. The more success that I had in sport, the more opportunities that were available to me, and certainly after winning Olympics, and then of course continuing education outside of sport and many other things. I think the opportunities of just having sponsorship, people that I met through sponsorships, the networks, the relationships that I was able to develop and continue to have, and I guess nurture in a sense and grow. At the same time, I was always conscious of doing that throughout my sport, knowing that there was a life after sport, or some of the business opportunities that I came across throughout my sport. So I was always conscious of doing that, and the more success that I had, the more doors it opened and the more opportunities I could exploit. So for me, I was always conscious of that because I definitely had ambitions outside of sport that I wanted to pursue. It's a very selfish thing to be a sports person at an elite level, or pursuing to be at an elite level, because a lot of the focus is on you, the early mornings, the training regime, the travelling, the diet, the continual competitions and the nurturing that an individual needs. So I think the implications, I wouldn't call it implications, I would call it more active support from their end, them wanting to actually contribute to your career, to help you, to be loving and caring enough to want to support you through that. And for them, yeah, there's no doubt that they see the sacrifices that you're making within your life to be able to try and achieve those goals. So I guess they're willing to sacrifice a little bit at their end, and to let you be a bit selfish, and for them to be selfless and come in and actually contribute to that success. And of course you've got to be conscious of that your way through your career, because you have to be thankful towards that. And I think the older you get, the more you get a better understanding or comprehension of what contribution or level of contribution that they made, particularly my parents, now that I look back at my career throughout your sporting years. So that support is absolutely critical. And I don't know if I like to think of it as a negative implication that was on them, but was just something that they were willing to do to help you out, because they saw the seriousness that you sort of had in terms of your application and training and competing. I always had great friends. For me, the great thing about sport, there was no peer pressure for me growing up to go out and do the bad things, because I was so involved in sport and doing quite well at a young age. People always, my good mates that got up to mischief, they would never ever even ask me to do it or try and be involved, because they knew how involved I was in sport. So they always supported me from every angle, and I guess I turned to those things because there's some of the negative things that can drag you away from sport, or take you away from your goals, or make you sidetracked. But I never had that, because I was pretty open about what I was doing, and they were very supportive, and they wouldn't want to drag me away from that. They always complimented that and were very supportive. And I think when you start having success, you see more of your true friends, people who are there to continue to support you, and probably not jealous of success that you're having at a young age that they're probably not directly involved with. So for me, sport in that respect was great, because no one ever tried to take me away from it. They saw that I was a little bit different. I had goals in that area, so they weren't negative towards it. If I couldn't do something, I couldn't stay out late through high school and all those various things, they understood. So it was very easy for me to focus on my goals. And when you start getting success, you realise that the people that are genuine and are happy for you and are going to be there through the good or the bad times. So for me, in that respect, it probably created a better environment, a more secure environment in that respect. And I was probably fortunate to be surrounded by good people in that respect. It's always tough when you're serious about your sport, and particularly a sport like swimming, when it's early mornings and then you come home after school and then you're back off to the pool and you're doing that 6 days a week. So you come home pretty tired. And for me, my parents were always conscious of my school and my marks there. And you're not always guaranteed sporting success, but with education, you're always guaranteed you can get some sort of work and something to have a livelihood. And so my parents were always conscious of that. It was like, you do sport, but it's not going to be at the sacrifice of your education. So for me, to have that balance was very important. And if sport wasn't going well, where there were plenty of times where I had my down times and I wasn't achieving my goals, I had my education there, whether it was in high school, whether it was in university. There was always that, my eggs weren't all in one basket. So I had parents who were very understanding of the level of dedication that I had in my sport, so there was a little bit of leniency there. But there certainly wasn't the level of leniency where it was at sacrificing my school grades or compromising my future in terms of an academic future where I could later go on to work somewhere and be professional in another field besides sports. So I took care of that to the best of my ability, which went pretty well. And then, of course, focus on the sport. So very hard balance, very challenging, and I think it just teaches these fundamental skills at a young age without even realising it, in terms of managing your time, managing stress, goal setting, teamwork, and being determined to achieve those and keep that engine running smooth, because certainly something can fall or break when you are juggling a few balls, but I think sport in that respect was good because it taught me to manage all these things and still doing them at the level that I needed to sustain success within the sport, and where I could potentially take that, but also not compromise my school academic grades. I think that's a big issue. I think that's a very, very difficult one to manage, because I would love to see, I guess, the government out there maybe creating some sort of tax incentive scheme for employees to be, for employers, sorry, to have athletes come onto their books and be understanding of their training schedules, their travelling schedules and touring and competition and stuff like that, to give a bit of leniency, and there's a little bit of incentive from the government on the other end to allow employers to go, I'll hire an athlete, I understand their work ethic, but there's also a tax incentive there because of the leniency I have to give in terms of their training and competition schedules. So that's always a very difficult one to balance, because I don't think there's many employers out there that those athletes in their chosen fields and where they foresee themselves going in future years can actually go, I'd love to go into property development or banking or teaching or the various other trades that are out there. So I think it would be great if there was more opportunities for athletes to be able to coordinate the two better and specialise in the fields that they want, because for me, I was fortunate enough to have corporate backing in my career, which not many athletes are privileged enough to have that, and I was very, very lucky in that sense. So, you don't want to finish sport in your late 20s or early 30s and go, I've got absolutely nothing. So I think if they can pursue their profession without sacrificing themselves going to the Olympic Games and being successful at that level, but still dipping their toe in the water at that end and building another skill set, I think that's an area where there still is a gap. And I think athletes in themselves need to be proactive in that as well. It's not just up to other people to put it in front of them. They've certainly got to be proactive and out there and doing it themselves, and having a little bit of foresight and knowing there's a career after their sporting career. But the combination of work along with sport, I think, is something that still needs a lot of work.